So a few weeks ago, I posted a video warning sellers to really beware of these shady investors that are out there. And I'm not saying that all investors are shady, but there are a good number of them out there. And today I have an update to that video. It contained a real life case study shared with me by one of my real estate agent clients. And I want to tell you the second part of the story. My name is Sharon Smoot. I'm a realtor and a residential real estate closing attorney in the metro Atlanta area. So let's get right into it. First, I want to tell you that I am going to link that previous video up top here somewhere, and I will also link it in the description of this video. So this seller entered into an agreement with an investor whereby the investor had 120 days to find a replacement buyer. And the contract said that this investor had 120 days to market the property from the date that professional photos were taken. Remember that. That's an important detail. So when I looked over this agreement that the seller had signed, there were just red flags going up all over the place. There were so many provisions of that contract that were problematic. And one of the biggest issues was this provision about the marketing period, the 120-day marketing period. What made it problematic is that it did not specify a date by which the professional photos had to be taken. So essentially, what that meant was that this investor, this buyer, could lollygag and take his sweet time, not take any pictures, not be obligated to market the property, and basically waste up the seller's time. The seller in this instance became very, very frustrated, and he made efforts almost immediately to try to cancel this contract. But what this shady investor did was go down to the real estate records in the county where the property was located and file a memorandum of purchase and sale agreement. What does that mean? It means that there is now a cloud on the seller's title, which will prevent him from selling his property until that cloud has been removed. Shady. Can you say shady with me? If you think that's some shady stuff, comment shady. Just let me know. If he's upset, he's trying to figure out what he can do. One of his options is to sue. But honestly, who has the time and the money and even the inclination to go through a lawsuit that could take a year or more to resolve? All the while, this guy is wanting to sell his house, but it's tied up in litigation. Is he going to be able to sell it? Not until that cloud on title is removed. And ultimately, would a lawsuit have resulted favorably to the seller? More likely than not. But again, it's the time, it's the money to retain counsel, it's the aggravation, all of that. Who wants to deal with that? What he did was begin negotiating with this investor. Ultimately, what happened was that the seller had to pay this shady investor $10,000 to release that memorandum of purchase and sale agreement that he had recorded against the seller's property. Insane, right? Insane. He literally extorted $10,000 out of this seller to clear his title. I mean, I just can't tell you how angry this type of thing makes me. And in this instance, the seller was fortunate that he had $10,000. The average person might not have $10,000 laying around that they can pay in extortion money to some shady investor. They might not have it. There might be some time things going on. Maybe there's a foreclosure looming. Who knows? But when you get mixed up with one of these investors, it's no telling when your property might be sold. And what I learned from this seller's real estate agent just on Wednesday, April 15th, is that between the time they entered into that contract, which was, I think, January 5th, and the time that Shady investor signed that release, April 8th, not one professional photo had been taken. So that 120-day marketing period specified in the contract hadn't even begun to run yet. Hadn't even begun to run. That is 4 months of the seller's valuable marketing time wasted. And here's the thing, another provision in that agreement gave the buyer, the investor, power of attorney to execute purchase and sale agreements, listing agreements with a real estate agent, to sign the closing documents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Why in God's name would anybody give a random stranger that much control over their property? If you need to give somebody power of attorney, it's going to be somebody you know, or should be somebody you know and trust, not some random investor whose interests are diametrically opposed to yours. They want to buy the property for as cheaply as possible. You want to sell it for as much as possible. So how would they ever be expected to act and trusted to act on your behalf and do what's best for you? They can't, because what they want is the complete opposite of what you want. So this seller paid this investor $10,000. $10,000. That is a lot of money for the average person. And surely, even if you have $10,000 sitting around, you don't want to spend it that way, right? So, again, I can't emphasize to you enough how important it is, if you are approached by an investor and they're asking you to sign anything, that you have it reviewed by a trusted real estate agent, by an attorney. Have it reviewed and make sure that it passes muster. This is not the first time that I've seen this type of agreement. One of my friends got mixed up with one of these people. I was supposed to list her house. Next thing I know, she tells me that she's selling it to this investor, and it ended up being a disaster. I'm not going to go over that again. You can hear more about that in the other video. But it's extortion. He literally extorted $10,000 out of this seller. And all I can say is thank God the seller was able to extricate himself from this mess. I've checked with the county, and the release has actually been recorded. So he is now free to list his property with the real estate agent, who he should have listed it with in the first place, and actually get it sold.